There is a perception among some in the public for various reasons, the allocation agreement with ARCO, the secret nature of those negotiations, and talks about Butte Priority Soils, etc. The Butte-Silver Bow government has not fought for removal of the Parrot tailings, is not fighting for it now, and is generally okay with waste in place. How is that perception wrong?
I just think the general nature of the way that this question is worded really kind of is indicative of how difficult it is for people to grasp this whole situation. I understand that we're trying to make this simple for the public to understand, but in a lot of ways, some things just can't be simplified so much. And so I could go through some reasonings on why I think that question just is too difficult to answer, because tailings are waste, but not all waste is tailings. And so to contend that we haven't fought for the removal of the Parrot tailings because we generally accept waste in place is right out of the gate a flawed question or a flawed perception. And again, I think, like I said, it's indicative of how difficult this is to grasp. So if you're talking about waste rock, which is very coarse, generally unavailable to the biology and the people and environmental and public health on the hill, which is high and dry above the creek and above groundwater, I think that it has been generally acceptable based on all of the criteria that have been met for us to be able to take care of these areas in place. They have been capped with good amounts of clean material, and we're starting to see diverse vegetation take hold to hold that clean material in place and keep it protected. Now, if you're talking about waste such as the Parrot tailings, the diggings east and the north side tailings, which are along a waterway and saturated in some areas, totally different scenario. And I think from the very beginning, Butte-Silver Bow has always been on board with making sure those ways are taken out of water's way. Now, this perception that we haven't fought or aren't fighting and are generally okay with the fact that the Parrot tailings are still sitting there is just not founded. It's not true. There are some things that I think are probably worthy of trying to see where this perception might have come from. And they're mentioned in the question. The 1992 was when the Butte Priority Soils operable unit, which is the Butte City Superfund site, was named a Superfund site, at which time the local government was named as one of the responsible parties, because the waste that was placed on the hill as a result of over 100 years of mining and processing made its way to the creek by way of our stormwater system, and that's how we got named a responsible party. But to say that we're on the same level of a responsible party as Atlantic Richfield or the other players in this game is just not true. But it does complicate it, because we're not just your average local government. We're actually a responsible party on this. And so we do have some obligations to ensuring that the cleanup that is selected, which has been selected for the Priority Soils operable unit, is maintained and monitored forever, so that the creek and our watershed is safe for people to live, work, and play. So that's one area of this perception that we actually have a responsibility as part of the cleanup. It hasn't affected our ability to fight for the best cleanup for this community. I've got a very different background than any previous chief executive, in that I graduated from Montana Tech with a degree in chemistry and have worked in the realm of Superfund since 1995, just 3 years after this site was named. And so I know a lot about this that the general public doesn't know about. Fast forward to the next thing that could lead to this perception would be in 2006, when they being Environmental Protection Agency, State of Montana, and Atlantic Richfield, finally came up with their record of decision on how this site would be cleaned up. 2006, which was the year that the agencies and ARCO signed a record of decision, was also the year that Butte-Silver Bow signed an allocation agreement with ARCO, which spelled out the long-term obligations of our local government to maintain and take care of the Superfund site. Now that's this document here that is readily available, and nowhere in it where it does specify some responsibilities, and Butte-Silver Bow in its position paper, which is part of that, specifies some criteria that we wanted applied to the remedies that were being selected for the various parts of the cleanup. They're in there, but nowhere again is there anything that dictates that we are not fighting for the best cleanup possible for this community. And then of course the other overarching one that you hear is a very big bone of contention, and I will contend that it's a bone of contention for us too, is this federal judge and the federal court order that all negotiations and discussions towards a consent decree, because this was all part of the big lawsuit between the state of Montana and ARCO, should remain confidential. And so I would love the gag order to be lifted on this. I would love to allow the public and concerned citizens to come in and see just how hard we are fighting for their best interests. But unfortunately, the federal judge will not allow that. And so those are some of the areas, anytime that government operates behind closed doors, the questions start flying. And again, I would love to open that door, but we've got a judge in a federal court order that says that can't happen. So I just think that the contention we haven't been fighting is just unfounded. I can tell you what we've been doing since I've been in office, and I can tell you it has been consistent, as I stated during my campaign, that the comprehensive cleanup of this community was going to be one of my priorities. I immediately went to work on that. I have been on the doorstep of the governor. I have been on the doorstep of the Attorney General. I have been on the doorstep of the EPA and the Department of Environmental Quality, as well as continuing to work hard pressuring Atlantic Richfield for all of those agencies to come together cooperatively so we can get this cleaned up once and for all. And we're going to continue that fight, because we are not going to take a backseat to anybody in fighting for what's best for this community. We know what it means in terms of the long-term viability of our economy here and the quality of life for our citizens and businesses.